My name is Cammy Henderson. I'm an academic coach here at Graduation Alliance, and I've been asked to give a presentation on motivating my students. So when I was asked to give this presentation, I was initially pretty lost as to what I can do. I think like a lot of education professionals, especially right now, I'm having a lot of trouble getting my students that were challenging to motivate on a good day to now be motivated to do schoolwork given this global pandemic. However, in creating for this presentation, I was reminded about a lot of basic things that I can do from my heart that can show my students that I'm here for them even now and set them up for success and remind them of why they're doing what they're doing in the hopes that that kind of loving support is what's going to motivate them. So let's get on to the presentation. Okay, let's begin. So I titled this Radical Positivity and Motivation. As I'm sure anyone who works with teenagers knows, sometimes just simple positivity can feel like a radical movement. So often, especially now, given the current climate, positivity is a very challenging thing to access, not just for our students, but for other professionals in this industry. And so I think trying to channel that as best as we can, especially right now, is going to be the key. So first things first, let me introduce myself a bit more. I'm Cammy. I have a background in American Sign Language and case management for group homes for adults with intellectual disabilities. That was my job before I came here. As you can imagine, that required a lot of patience and a lot of compassion, but it all came from love for my individuals, which hopefully my students now can feel. I've been with Graduation Alliance since September of last year. I really enjoy my job, and I am passionate about my job because I was a student like my students currently in high school. I was labeled as unmotivated. I had trouble organizing my thoughts, let alone my homework. And so I struggled a lot in school, and it wasn't for lack of intellect or lack of desire to be a good student. It was just I felt lost, and there wasn't a program like this for me that had someone who was asking me questions and trying to get to the bottom of why I was lost. And so I am really grateful that I have the opportunity to turn around and help students like me and be that person that I could have benefited from. So let's start with reaching out to different students. It's difficult not to categorize our students into two different groups. We have one that I call my beautiful, perfect angels, who I adore, of course. They log in every day. They never miss a deadline. They're reaching out to me for updates on their grades. They're so grateful to have this opportunity to earn their high school diploma from the comfort of their own home for free. And they use the resources I provide to them. They need help with tutoring in a class. I have free tutoring. They are going to take the ACT or the SAT. I have prep for them. They're struggling with a certain subject. I can get them meetings one-on-one with their teachers. I have a million trillion resources. And when I give these to these students, my beautiful, perfect angels, they hop on it. And then we have other students. A lot of them haven't logged in for weeks. Their classes come and go, and they've maybe logged in and looked at it. Maybe they've signed the contract at the beginning, done one or two auto-graded assignments, and the class falls off their dashboard. They avoid my calls and my texts, all of my well-meaning reaching out to try to get to them, to try to motivate them. They seem burdened by this opportunity, the fact that I'm here and I'm trying to ask them what's stopping them. They seem like is a struggle for them rather than an opportunity that they can take advantage of. And they don't follow through. When I give them these resources, when I throw all my well-meaning plans at them, it comes and it goes, and nothing really changes. So obviously, we're not going to have a lot of trouble with the first category. They're pretty much motivated on their own. We are the wind beneath their wings, and they're going to fly out of here in about a month or two. The others are the ones that are dragging their feet, and they're the ones that we're going to need to put a bit more work into. So here's a very simple chart. This is a pretty typical chart of a student that comes to our program. They start off, they're really excited. You see that first peak because they have all these classes. We tend to start them off with easier classes so they can get used to the program. They eat them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They get 2 or 3 done a week, and eventually they slow down. They get burnt out. Life starts creeping in. Since they aren't in a traditional school, now they have time to get a job, and maybe a job starts taking away their time and their motivation, and we end up here. If we are going to use the principle that I'm talking about in this presentation, we must believe that we are at the bottom of a valley before a peak. We are looking at this graph with certainty that this is the future if they are able to tap in to X, Y, or Z. We are not going to get bogged down by the idea that we are in the middle of this valley. We're going to keep looking for that peak and see the potential in our students to then continue upward. I really like this quote. If someone is going down the wrong road, he doesn't need motivation to speed him up. What he needs is education to turn him around. I really like that because I come at my students with a lot of energy saying, how can we get this going? How can I help you? You're so close to getting your diploma. Let's go, 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 go. Because if I am on the right path, that's exactly what I need. I need someone who's there, who's my number one cheerleader, who's going to help me continue the choices that I'm making because they're good ones. A lot of my students don't have even the most simple foundation of what it means to make a decent choice that is going to help them in the long run of their lives. So instead of just motivation, encouragement, cheerleading, we are going to do careful, considerate coaching. I created this cycle of C's because I learn better with a mnemonic device. I'm sure you do too. It's a 5-step program: consistency, candor, compassion, creation, and circle back. So let's break all of these down. Consistency. Keep positive and constructive feedback regular. This is going to help your students get comfortable with two-way dialogue about their process. I've found a lot of students get upset or hurt when they receive any sort of feedback that is less than "you're crushing it." And it makes sense. They're sensitive, they're teenagers, they're trying to figure out their way in the world. And so when they make a misstep, it feels huge. So keeping any kind of feedback regular, even for my beautiful, perfect angels, is part of the process because it helps them become accustomed to Cammy's going to be contacting me all the time, letting me know what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. And if I'm doing something wrong, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. This is a learning moment. We're going to move on. End communications with a question. This is just going to set the expectation of a response. A positive example for anyone who's really excelling: is there anything I can do to support you more? What are you doing over the weekend? These are examples of a question. We want feedback. Sorry, I think that cut off. What are you doing for the weekend? This sets up the expectation of I want a two-way dialogue. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to A, just make sure this is still your phone number. And B, I want to know you as a person. Constructive examples of questions for our other students. What is your game plan for getting caught up? When can you log in today? What's getting in your way? Again, I want a two-way dialogue. I want questions that are going to probe deeper than what's going on. And I want to see some sort of response right now. Something about today. Something about how, why, what. Something very tangible that we can get into as simple as a text. Share feedback often, no less than once a week. Even if I'm staying late on Fridays, I am touching base with all of my students, which is about 200, at least once a week, with a text, with a phone call, with a chat in our portal. It's just so critical that they have that consistent feedback, even if it is, again, hey, tell me how your classes are going. That's it, a simple text. Or Hey, you're working on science right now. I know that's your favorite subject. How are you enjoying it? For more on how to build up a relationship and then take it to this consistent check-in, please see the presentations from my coworkers. Strategies for Building Relationships by Audrey Stevenson. She's amazing. And a Strong Start webinar by Rayshawn Carr. They are going to be really good foundational stones for this pyramid that I'm on. Right now, I'm kind of at the top of this hierarchy. So get a really good relationship started and then consistently be following up. That way, if we catch a snag, if we're at the bottom of a valley, we're already in the zone of we're talking about your school. And so it's not all right, we haven't talked to you in a month, but you're really falling behind. Let's sit down. It's not as serious as that. Candor, we're keeping it 100. Don't beat around the bush. They know why you're calling. They know why you're texting. If they haven't logged in for 3 weeks, they know what's up. Just rip off the Band-Aid. So you need to say, tactful and respectfully, hey, how are you doing? The answer, great. Thank you for taking my call. I wanted to talk about you and your classes that were due last night and get your input as to what happened and how we can avoid this in the future. It's to the point. They know what you're talking about. You're not being rude. You're not saying, so class is dropped. Like, no one wants to hear that. You're being direct, but you're not being mean. And accept honesty in return. If you ask a student if they plan on doing any homework today, they'll say like, no, it's great. This is a teaching moment. We're not going to question them until they say what they want. But we want them to say. We want them, of course, to say, yeah, of course I'm doing my homework today. But if it's not honest, then that's not going to get anything done anyway. So let's use this as a teaching moment. Okay, what's going on today? Basketball practice. Is basketball practice pulling you away from your homework often? How can we make sure that school is a priority as well? We're not putting it off. We're not saying, okay, well, then you can do it tomorrow. We are incorporating this as more data as to what makes the student them. And we're going to figure out a way that we can keep school as a priority. Compassion. This is my favorite one. Be respectful. Treat your students how you'd like to be treated. It's golden rule. It's kindergarten stuff. But it is so crucial. Avoid blaming. This is not a fault in their character. It's biology homework. And biology homework is so important. I love education. I love school. It's my favorite thing. If I could be a student forever, I would. That's not everyone. And in the general scheme of life, biology homework is not life or death. So this isn't, this student is lazy. They're falling behind. They're procrastinating. They're putting it off. I'm so frustrated. This is not a blame game. This is a reaching out with your heart and finding out why. Seek to understand. Keep it conversational. This isn't a, so your class is dropped again. That's not going to get us anywhere. Keep it conversational and just try to understand their point of view. Help me understand what happened. Ask probing questions to get to the full picture. This doesn't have to be a comfortable conversation. This doesn't have to be soft. We don't have to go easy on them. We are listening to them. A, because there's quite often no one else that's going to listen to these students. And B, because we want to know why. We want to prevent this from happening in the future. And so if we shut down any attempt that they might have or willingness that they might have to be open with us, we're not going to get anywhere. So ask probing questions. Don't let them off the hook with, bummer. Well, try again. Why? What happened? I know that you want to go to hair school this fall and you're not at the pace that you need to be in order to be graduated by then. So what's going on? I want to help. We are all on the same side. We start on their side and we ask why. We know that if Alexis had her way, she would get her classes done on time. Of course, every student wants to succeed. Every student, even if they say they don't want to, even if they say they don't care, even if they say that they're just here because someone is making them sign up for this program, they want to succeed. Everyone does. So let's start with that assumption and move forward. If you wanted to get your class done, if you want to not have me call you all the time, what's getting in your way? And listen, if they say, my grandma died, yes, this is the 20th grandma that I've heard died this week. Oh my gosh, that is horrible. I'm so sorry. Because for all 20 of those grandmas that died, one of them probably did. And so I would never want to shut down a student who had such a terrible loss in their family by saying like, okay, well, why didn't you get them done anyway? This is the first grandma that died to them. So we have to take it in stride and understand, well, yes, of course, if my grandma died, I wouldn't have gotten my biology homework done either. And acknowledge your own frustration. And I care about you, and I know that you don't want your schooling to fall behind. I wouldn't be invested in your education enough to be frustrated if I didn't care about you as a person. This frustration isn't going to go anywhere. I can preach love and positivity until I'm blue in the face, and I will, because I love it so much. But I get frustrated all the time with my students that I am positive this is a conversation that's going to turn them around, and then I check on them tomorrow and they haven't logged in. It is incredibly frustrating, but it is because I care about my students and because I care about them as people, not just as students. And I know that a high school diploma is going to get them to places that they want to go. So of course it's frustrating. Tell them that. Compassion will cure more sins than condemnation. That's by Henry Ward Beecher. He was an abolitionist and a preacher in the 1800s. I love this quote so much. We are working in education probably because we care about education, we care about students, and we want them to succeed more than we want them to fail, of course. So why not lead with that? Why not lead with our compassion? Because A, it's closer to who we are and our values, and B, it's more successful. I am more likely to live up to the expectations of someone who believes in me than someone who tears me down, or who points out my flaws, or who blames me, or who throws things in my face. I am less likely to work for them than I am for someone who says, hey, these are the things you want. I'm here to help you with them. What's going on? Next step is create. Create a plan. Set expectations. We're not just going to tell the students that they did something wrong. We're going to discuss the expectations that they agreed to in the first place and the expectations of what they are going forward. We're going to focus on what we've done already. Hey, these are great things that you've done so far. Even if they haven't done anything so far, you signed up for this program, you answered my phone call today. Great. What can we do going forward? We are going to guide them to create their own plan. I am a fixer and I love to problem solve, and I have brilliant ideas of when they can log in, what alarms they can set, how often they can log in per week, like how many assignments they can do a day, what windows of time they can. As brilliant as my ideas are, they are nothing compared to a plan that a student creates for themselves. Even if they just say, I'm going to do 3 assignments a day. Great. When? I don't know. Got to be more specific. Okay, at night. Great. What time at night? Oh, what time do you eat dinner? 6. Then how about 7? 7? Yeah, all right. Okay, great. They are creating a plan now that they're going to do 3 assignments every night at 7. How are you going to remember? I don't know, maybe put an alarm in my phone. I love that idea. Do that right now. Let's encourage them and support them, give them ideas if we need to, and then push them to do it themselves. Then it is our time to make an informed decision on our end. Now that we took the time to gather the facts, we figured out why they're doing what they're doing, the habits that they're in, we can proceed with our own methods of support once we have created this plan. So we can then coach them how to do things differently, provide guidance, remind them of the expectations that they have set for themselves in the future. And then we're going to circle back. Circling back is super important, and it's also so easy to forget. So I schedule it for myself. I recommend creating an event in a Google Calendar just because I'm already on my computer. And if I have my Google Calendar up, it'll send me little notifications of like, text Nicole or check in on Brendan. I recommend doing that no more than 72 hours after initial contact. So even if it's on a Friday, check in on them on that Monday. If it's on a Wednesday, no later than Friday. That's the kind of consistency that they're going to need to show that not only did she call and does she care and we figure out a plan, she's going to hold me to it. Let them know your thoughts. You've circled back, you've checked in on them. If they're doing great, that's amazing. I am floored. You are crushing it. I'm so proud of you. keep it up. And if they are not, we're going to compassionately remind them of the goals that they have set if we have not seen improvement. For more information on this step, I would recommend checking out the accountability presentation that my coworker Crystal Grant did. She's awesome. Now, after all this, ideally, this would be the end of the book. We did these 5 steps, and they never missed a deadline again. No, we are back to the beginning. Consistency, candor, compassion, creation, circle back. It is so frustrating. So frustrating, especially when you have these conversations, you have what you feel like are breakthroughs, and then they're back to what they usually do. That kind of frustrating, that getting your hopes up, that pouring out the positivity, that let down feeling, that disappointment, it's part of our job. And so it is not something that we can use to shield ourselves and build up a very natural chitin that we want to do as people. We must keep our hearts open, remind ourselves why we're doing what we're doing, and be the never-ending force of respect and compassion that often so many of our students completely lack. If we are the only person in the world that's telling them, I believe in you, they need to keep hearing that, even if it's the 200th time, because I do. And hopefully, fingers crossed, eventually, instead of being at that first valley, we'll be there next time we have to have this conversation. That's my presentation. Thank you for watching.